The movement was begun by a scientist who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered.
They want their weapon.
Look out for Charlie.
I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.
So some people caught on to my video that I did, the last video, when I said that that was me. They realized who it was. All right. This is really me. This is from a couple years ago, so here I'm showing my face. Stop it. I am not dead. That was a video I did a long time ago. So you got me. Now you know what I look like, right there. And moving on. I get a lot of poorly executed manipulation attempts and different comments all the time, right? But this one was the best manipulation attempt ever. This person comes and comments on the 1995 video that I did. No captioning and no ability to read anyone's lips. Thanks a lot. From the deaf community. What, dude? That is amazingly awesome. Do you know how many videos don't have any lips for you to read? That is fucking amazing. That is so awesome. It's like, I can't even say it. I can't even say what I'm thinking because I'll get kicked off YouTube. But what this really means is bots need captions to read and show your face. That's what it really means. It's awesome though. Keep posting them. I love them. I screen cap them. I keep them all. Okay, this relates to this video. This has been brought up to me over and over and over. And people have asked, what do you think is going on with this case? Do you remember the case of Austin in Jupiter, Florida? The guy's name was Austin. And he freaked out, and other people did this around the exact same time, and he attacked a family that were in their garage. He believed that the woman was a witch, and he was like eating her face and shit, the cannibal guy. Well, people have asked me about that for years. What do you think was happening? And I kept saying that there was a piece missing. There is a piece missing. And I can't figure it out, but there's a piece missing from this, because they just said that he just freaked out of nowhere, right? And that wasn't the case at all. I don't know if this information is new or if I missed it, but we were watching something within the last couple days, and this popped up, and finally I was like, aha. He had been hearing voices, what he described as God and the devil. So there's the missing link. Finally, he was hearing voices. All right, guys, totally normal, and then boom, starts hearing voices. Here's his mom in a police interview.
His mom said, Alex said Austin told him the devil talked to him like 6 months ago, but they just played it off.
So the devil talked to him 6 months ago, and the devil had been talking to him, and God had been talking to him. They talk about that in another part of the video. Now, the guy that did this video, he sounds like the guy the voice that does Audit the Audit. And he talks about mental health and counseling and psychology a lot, so I do not approve of this video at all. But in this clip, they admit and get into the fact that he was hearing voices. So case closed. Austin was being messed with. Totally. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had a feeling, but I couldn't say for sure. It seemed like this guy was hearing voices. Then he thought demons and shit were in his house, and he was up to guard his family against these alleged demons. So this is what was going on. For Christ's sake, it's just happening over and over. Are people getting it yet? Are you getting it yet? Now, recently I received a message that basically insisted that I was making something out of nothing with the Jason Klopfer case. They stated that the most obvious situation was the neighbor was just making this all up to get Klopfer in some type of trouble or get him shot, right? They insinuated that I'm making this narrative up from nothing, that I'm coming to the conclusion that the sound is fooling people just because I think it is. But the reality is that this isn't the case at all. There's a long history of this weapon being used on random people at random times, but mostly at night. And that is one of the red flags of this weapon. Nighttime. One of them. Happens 24 hours a day. But as far as the sound being used in an area, generally happens at night. And let's go over why I came to the conclusion of what actually happened in the Klopfer situation. And let me point out the reasons why I believe this to be a case of someone hearing something happening that isn't really there. remember that we're not talking voice to skull here. It's the same weapon, but this throws sound into an area, for example, in a house, to create the illusion that something is happening outside when it isn't, or something is happening upstairs or on the roof when it isn't. This can fool multiple people, but it only needs to fool one. You know, they are testing this in multiple areas to make sure that the entire system is working, and they continually test it, just like they test the emergency alert system. So when I say they, I mean any contractors involved in working with this weapon and the national system that they have implemented. Generally, this weapon pushes audio into an area somewhere after 10 p.m. when it is used like this, when things are settling down and people are isolated. This isn't a spook in a tree holding something that looks like a parabolic microphone, if that's what you're picturing. This is a vast signal, and it can be amplified anywhere. It creates the infamous hum that people hear, and it creates the strange sounds being heard around the world. So, you know, for all we know, the locations are randomly chosen by computers. So we're not talking voice to skull here. I'm talking audio weapons, like what happened to the soldiers on OP Rock that heard firefights and weapons going off, or what happened to the people in Vegas with hearing shots everywhere. This is a weapon of war, and this is a reality, not a theory.
So again, this idea of being able to put sound anywhere you want to is really starting to catch on. We've got the military had just deployed some of these into Iraq, where you can put fake troop movements a quarter of a mile away on a hillside. Or you can whisper in the ear of a supposed terrorist some biblical verse. I'm serious.
And these weapons go far beyond Woody Norris's Mickey Mouse sound weapon. They took Woody Norris's invention and they shelved it because they had something better. Throw a few on a truck or whatever and shelve the rest because they're buying them, as Woody Norris says, they are buying them from him as fast as he can make them, but they're just shelving them because they have something far superior. The neighbor doesn't just claim to hear this, she claims to have this on video. So surely the police have at least a copy of this video with the alleged sound. And if I had this audio/video, I could tell you for certain if this is real audio being created or weaponized sound. Klopfer's lawyer also has to have a copy of this video, and possibly Klopfer himself. So simply getting me the video would allow me to say for certain. These situations have a script. And the script is always generally the same. Someone hears gunshots and yelling. Then they hear almost the exact same word-for-word quote. And that quote is always someone yelling that everyone will DIE. And when the police come, they will DIE as well. In fact, this exact scenario happened in Seattle. Like a week later, I think it was like a week later, where someone reported hearing gunshots on the other side of the country, yelling, and then a voice saying, everybody is going to DIE. So it's the exact same scenario. However, there were people on the scene that said there were no gunshots, no shooting, and no gun, just a guy in a yellow hoodie. So you're trying to tell me that people are just randomly making the exact same scenario up? That doesn't make any sense. Here it is from Seattle. Police had been dispatched to the area after a 911 caller reported that a gunshot, and a second caller reported 2 shots along with somebody yelling, everybody is going to DIE. But the people at the scene told police there was no shooting and no gun, only a young person in a yellow sweater. The Klopfer call is no different.
I just heard his wife screaming, stop it, and then a bunch of shots went off, and now I can't hear her over there at all.
The 911 caller says the threat was real.
You heard him say that he was going to kill everybody in the neighborhood?
You heard him say that he was going to kill everybody in the neighborhood. That is exactly what the person in Seattle heard. Exactly, the exact same thing. So what is going on here? It's the same script, and you have to realize that. Same script in every one of these cases. And it isn't just gunshots. People like Raj Moonsinghi here are being fooled into thinking that there are intruders in their home, and then they get themselves shot by the police in the panic, or they go missing because they believe people are following them. This never happened before. You have to look at all the red flags. So I will link to this video below because not enough people have seen it. This is part 2, Incident in Austin, Explosive Evidence, which shows that there were audio weapons being used when Raj Moonsinghi got shot by police. So Raj was killed by police after he believed an intruder was in his home, and was outside his residence with a rifle. And there are two messages to this situation. One is that audio weapons are certainly being used. The guy's a programmer. He was a tech owner of a tech company, and then all of a sudden gets himself shot. This is happening to all kinds of tech people. The guy from Graphene OS got swatted. A lot of weird instances going on with these people. So there are two messages to this, and one is that audio weapons are certainly being used, and two is that police need to get used to seeing other people with firearms, because they just pulled up. He had a rifle out on his own property, and they just unloaded on him. And it's perfectly legal for someone to have a gun on them on their property. They can carry a firearm. You don't just get to unload on them. But I broke down and proved that audio weapons were used with the Raj Munsinghi case. And you need to see that. If I had the Jason Klopfer audio from the neighbor, I could tell 100% one way or another whether audio weapons were being used or not. But I believe they were, because it has all the red flags. The Munsinghi case is important, and you should watch it and listen to the evidence that I'll pin. Not enough people have watched it. These are all red flags. You have to study them. I recently did 2 videos on one city where 2 instances happened in the same week, in the same city. One guy believed that people were breaking into his home when no one was actually there. Okay? Then another guy believed that he trapped people who had broken into his shop by blocking them in with his truck. But when the police got there, there was no one inside. It's right here. Hearing voices prompts burglary call. And the guy who called the cops totally insisted that they must have gotten out another way. This was in Graham County. And the video is called Part 2, Masses of People Hearing Audio Weapons. I will link that below as well. These are just a few cases out of the hundreds that I have covered. And what is the common denominator here? The common denominator is, it is always sound. These people never see anyone, never see a vehicle, never see a shadow or anything physical. They are only hearing sound. Their senses are being fooled. So let's take the Kaylin Louder case, for example. A woman is completely normal one day. Then the next, she believes that people are breaking into her home and eventually leaves out of fear and ends up dead in the water somewhere. Never seeing them, only hearing sound. That's it. The exact same scenario has happened in Michigan over and over, but this particular one was a guy who thought people were breaking into his house with guns and jumped out of a second-story window to get away from them. And this is happening everywhere. And the mental illness narrative dominating the media is just a joke. These people are all having the exact same scripted, quote-unquote, delusions, or better put, illusions happening to them. And that's just a fact. You know, the Jason Klopfer case has all the hallmarks of audio weapons being used and amplified in his vicinity, and his neighbor was the one who picked up on it and heard it. So it's easy to take the Joe Sixpack attitude towards these instances when you haven't studied these cases, when you haven't studied the red flags that set these situations apart from normal encounters. And in 2023, it's easy for someone like the neighbor to make something up. No one needs to test the whole idea of making a false police report to see if they can get someone shot or someone killed. People know that works, but the national system that uses these weapons of war to trick the senses during civil unrest, that needs testing. And this isn't theory. We know these weapons exist.
Where you can put fake troop movements a quarter of a mile away on a hillside.
A nationwide system is the only option. And if I were involved with these weapons, I would be pushing for the exact same thing. I would. If the woman was just making it all up, if that were really the case, the police department or the sheriff's department would have thrown this woman under the bus. Full on, thrown her right under the bus. Right after the incident, since they're facing a huge lawsuit, they would have charged her and they would be blaming her. So the bottom line is, we need to get the video that the woman took or Klopfer's security cam audio from the entire night, and I can tell you for certain what was going on. This whole thing is like claiming that the simple and logical answer is mass shooters just went crazy, when 99% of them went from being completely normal people to having the worst possible symptoms of alleged schizophrenia simply overnight. And many of them far too old to even develop quote-unquote schizophrenia. They not only hear voices, but the voices follow a certain script. they say the same things, and they start with the same symptoms, like artificial tinnitus or vibrations that they feel, or sounds coming from the walls or the roof or above their home, whatever. There's a script, there are red flags. So it's easy to blow all this off when you don't study the red flags, when you haven't seen it 1,000 times, when you haven't seen the small details that let you know what is going on. Just like the case in Florida with that Austin kid that ate the face. I knew there was a piece missing. The piece finally reared its head, and the guy was hearing voices. So that's it for now. Look out for Charlie.
See that? Look out for Charlie wins. Pow!
Look out for Charlie. I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.